Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at 1991 Score Baseball. I'd like to say that this was some benchmark set for Score, but it really wasn't. It was kind of during a transition point where we went from the early stages of Score, which was trying to be an upscale version or an innovative version of what every other card company was doing for baseball cards, into becoming its own entity. And it was going through a transition time, as everybody was going through, but where baseball, I guess the best way to look at this is there are different stages of education that we go through. We go through grade school, high school, college, and then we head out on our own. And that's kind of the way that Score was going. In 1988, Score was going through its elementary school phase. It had tremendous amounts of potential, but didn't know how to do anything. And then in 1989, it thought that it knew what it was doing, and you could see that it was starting to explore some creativity, but it had a long way to go. And then in 1990, you could see that, okay, now they're actually getting it together. They just need to put the pieces together. That's what they're lacking. And 1991 was graduation and heading off and starting to define yourself as an individual. And they did a very good job here in 1991 of defining themselves. But it wasn't so much because that's where they got to as much as football. Now, Topps had already had a long tradition of using football as its kind of its exploration area, and then whatever they did in football, then they would do what they wanted to do in baseball off of that. Score kind of did the same thing. In 1989, they added draft pick rookies in Score football, and they were playing around with some ideas there that kind of made their way into the 1990 baseball set, but it's really 1990 football. That was the Score set that really defined how they were going to move this forward. First off, they did 2 series in 1990 football. And by doing that, that meant you could have a bunch of veterans, and then you could have some subset cards, and then you start back over with a bunch of veterans, and then some subset cards. Great way of breaking up the set, but it also allowed you to get more subset cards. It made more sense to have more subset cards in the overall set. They also had the ability to use the same 3 colors duplicated. Basically just repeat what they'd done in the first series. So instead of having 6 colors, which were all over the place, which they'd done in 88 through 1990 in baseball, here they got to reduce that, just do 4 colors and then 4 colors, just repeating the same 4 colors. And this made the set feel not nearly as chaotic. So it was a great combination of elements that they had in there, but also some of the things that they did with subsets, they were able to use that for what they were going to do here in 1991 with baseball. So 91 baseball is it's like a refined baseball equivalent of what they'd done in football, to an extent. The cards for baseball were, I love how the design is. It's actually very similar to 1990. It's just that the problem with 1990 is they had everything they needed. They just had this big distraction right in the middle that really overpowered it. Well, they fixed that by making the border a little bit thinner, but having some really fine details in there, which allowed the entire border to be bold, but not powerful. And then with all the stuff up on the top, it was a good combination of elements up on top that it attracts your eye, but it doesn't draw your eye. So you know it's up there, but you can stay focused on the image. And if you want to look at the top, it's easy to look up, see everything, and appreciate it. It looks great. I love the way that the text is up on the top, but this was all about the image in the middle of the card. And just like with 1990 football, here in 91 baseball, they were finally doing that. The image was the whole point of the card. Now on the card back's a little bit, I'm not a big fan of it. And I hate to say that because it actually is a really good card back, and it's still better than 89 and 90 football. Those 2 card backs they were terrible. But here they increased the image on the card a little bit too much. So I like the yellow box on the side. It's a muted yellow, so that works really well because it still allows the text to be what you see. The text is not overpowered by the yellow, and the yellow has kind of a muting quality, kind of a white noise-like effect. So that works well. And I love the fact that the stats for the player is actually the secondary color on the card. So it's not even black, which is a cool addition that they made. It's just fun how that worked out. And I do like the big image. It's just that because the image is so big, all the bio information at the bottom it's almost like an afterthought. I don't even really notice that it's down there. to the extent that when I look at the card, it looks like there's something missing. The bio information looks like the copyright disclaimer. And to my eye, whenever I look at the back, that's what stands out to me. So it should be good. If they had a little bit more room for the bio, it would have been, in my opinion, a great card back. But because of that, I always get thrown off by this card back. And is that kind of mean? No, I don't think it's mean. It's just, it's an ironic little element to this card back that keeps it just short of being a brilliant overall card. But for baseball, I think that this is about the best card design that you could see in 1991. There really wasn't much that could match this level. Score did not release a Pinnacle set here in 1991 for baseball. They would do it in football, but you can, with this card, you can feel much of the Pinnacle design sentiment in it. And there's something else we'll look at later on that also gives that feel. But for a Score card, this is definitely overachieving. And like I said, there are 4 different colors. So the first color is the blue. They also have a teal. And the teal card this is an interesting choice that I think is a huge success. Now, on its own, I don't like the teal cards. But within the color choice of this set, to me, when you're looking at this as a set, the teal comes through beautifully. I think it's a great complement to the blue. But what I really like, I really, really, really like the black cards. Now, black is kind of cheating because when you use black, it's a lot easier to make a great card design. That's fine. I'm sold. Here with the black, especially with the red detailing on it, the combination just makes a really rich, vibrant, strong, gorgeous card. And it does a great job of framing the player too. So fantastic, to the extent that I would say the black version of these cards, to me, is one of the all-time great cards in baseball card design. Now, does it stand up against the very best, say a Topps Gold Label? It's not quite at that level, but for a card design that is a true card design, this is a great card. And then the last set is the last group is white. And the white is a great choice. The actual veteran cards don't really work too well with the white. It's okay, but the white is where you transition into the subsets, and that's the beauty of it. So with the veterans, not so great. The prospects look better, and you'll notice that first off, they used a different color for the complementary color, where they used green here for the prospects. But they also have another band for the prospects component of the card design, which makes it works a lot better with the white border, to where this card actually does read well. And then along with prospects, they also did draft pick cards, draft pick rookies. And here this card is supposed to be super bold. Now, draft pick rookies were just starting to become popular. And this was a time of incredible excitement about all these new things that we were discovering. That was kind of the thing. It's like there were all these things that were there, and we were just starting to finally pick up on, oh, this is great. Now, in truth, this stuff was really kind of being invented, but the idea of getting a draft pick rookie, somebody who hasn't even earned his stripes at any level beyond high school, that's a bold and a challenging thing to do, and in baseball, it doesn't usually work. So it's more of a football and basketball affair where players are coming out of college. But it was so effective for us in those sports that for baseball, this was the untapped area where you can get them before they've even started to prove themselves. And that enthusiasm carried through to these cards. And like the success of most of the draft pick rookies, the card didn't work too well overall. For 1991, these cards worked great. They were super bold, screaming at the top of their lungs. And in that regard, fine. But the problem is, over the years, didn't age well, didn't hold up to the point where, just like the players, nothing to talk about. But like I said, it's really about the subsets here with the white section. And the All-Star cards are the first ones to go with. I love these cards. I really do. They went with an art design for it, but it's a cartoony pop art approach, a big head image, and there's an energy to it. That's what I love about these cards, is all the energy in it. And I also like the cartoony quality of the art. To me, I think somebody looked at a comic ball card and said, we need one of those. And so they made their own comic ball version of cards, all these players in this fun, energetic, and I think really kind of nice art approach for the cards. So I'm all in. I really like these. Now, I did talk about how in 1990 Score Football, they had done some things that inspired some of the cards here in the 91 baseball set. What I'm looking at specifically is there was a whole series of cards that were done in football for quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. And they all used a similar design and yet different designs at the same time. And it was fun to see those cards. Well, they did something similar here with batters, pitchers, and fielders. So starting off here with the batters, is you can see the card, and the way the card design is, I love this card design. It's got great color. The whole explosion component behind is great. The dynamics, the way they design the card really is wonderful. This is a case where it would have been nice for them to not have the white border, but it's not a problem because the energy of the card still carries through. And the whole point of subset cards was not to do anything important. It was only to have more cards of players. That was the whole point. We didn't have insert cards of any note at this point. Our insert cards, this is what they were. These were the chase cards. You open packs to complete the set, but you search through packs looking for these cards. That was really the drive. And these cards perfectly showcase that because on the card back you can see there's almost nothing. It's basically just about getting these batters or these pitchers with these blue cards. These cards were kind of the counterpoint for that. And then of course you have the fielders, the guys out playing defense out in the field with the green cards here. And when you look at these three cards, they look wonderful as a component of three cards at a time, and that's the only problem I have with this. In football, they had done completely different card backgrounds, and so each grouping of players looked like their own subset. Here, these look like the same subset either as parallels or complements. And I wish that they had done this so that it was all done in 3 players from each team, because you want this to be 3 takes of the same card, or at least I do. And even if they didn't do that, if they had thought in terms of pages of 9, where you have one page, another page, another page, every time you look at it, it's just transitioning from one theme to another, it would have looked great. That's the only drawback I have about this. Otherwise, I think this is a great card that was a truly phenomenal potential that they just didn't quite reach. Still, they look really good. Then they also did a no-hit club card set, and this is kind of a retro card. It really does look like an older card. It has almost a full bleed feel to it. It's got kind of like a big sunset in the back. Now, the sunset theme was kind of what they had done with the draft pick rookies, which I think was terrible. I don't like how it came out on those cards, primarily because the player felt like he was floating in it. Here, it feels a lot better, in part primarily because of the fact that it does have that old feel to it. So it looks more like the tradition that we saw. So players from the 1960s, here are the equivalents in 1990. That kind of a thing. So I like the card. I like the way it came across. But I really like the highlight cards. This is another traditional set that they had been doing with Score. And the way that the whole theme had been done, I think these are the best of the white cards. I love just the way that the whole thing comes together. I think it reads beautifully. But enough about the white cards. Now let's talk about the black cards. And what I mean by that is, even though this is technically in the theme of the white cards, some of the cards did come with a black border, starting with franchise cards. And this is where you can really see that these subset cards were essentially insert cards, just with the same numbers, although we'll get to that in a moment. But for the franchise cards, these are the star players, or the franchise supporting players of various teams. Gorgeous card, and it really does look like a standalone card set. I really like the cards. Then they also had a smattering of individual standalone cards, just special cards. And that included the Ryne Sandberg Man of the Year card. There was, it's kind of weird that they didn't do the whole World Series or the postseason like they typically did. So here they truncated it quite a bit, we'll say. But they also had a really great card that was a good chase card of the Griffeys. Now here in 1991, Ken Griffey Jr. was still proving himself. Everybody was super excited about the kid, but he was still proving himself. And so at the time, we were as excited about his future as the fact that he was playing on the same team as his dad. There had been a number of players who had played on the same team as a family member, but here was a father who had been a star, an occasional all-star, with a son who was a superstar up-and-comer. So it was a passing of the torch from one, not quite a legend, but star to an up-and-coming legend. And it was a really cool thing. So they had this cool card looking at that. But really, at the end of the day, in 1990, the card that really held up Score in baseball, and in a way with Score in football in 1989, but not as famously, was the Bo Jackson football baseball card. So he was the biggest guy on the planet. Why could you not do another card of him? Of course you're going to do that. But in this case, they wanted to do something special, and so they decided to look at his penchant for his bats, not making it all the way back to the dugout. Now, some of the time it happened because the swing and hitting the ball was just a little bit too much, but there were other times where his penchant for swinging and finding nothing but air and getting returned to his seat was a little bit too much, and it was impressive how many times he would take a bat and just snap it right over his knee. That's a guy with some strength, so why not do that? And so this was another really cool card they had in it. They also had a little subset of MVP cards, which is, Rookie of the Year, MVPs, stuff like that. And then they closed the set out with their Dream Team cards. And the Dream Team cards are kind of on a whole nother level. First off, you'll notice that on the back, it does have 2 series of numbers. So this is actually numbered like its own set. And in 1991, Score did not make a Pinnacle set. So we didn't get to see the Pinnacle design, but you can see here that this is very similar to what they were doing in Pinnacle in football and in hockey, as well as the Dream Team set in the football set. These cards are gorgeous. Black and white. The teal color is a great complement, but the cards are very, very, very heavy in the dark coloring of these black and white cards. And it was a really big elevation in baseball cards. There was very little that was done at this level. Even Donruss's studio cards really couldn't hold a candle to this. So this was showing that Score really could play at the top of the game. Now, we were just about to see a major transition in the card market away from base cards like this, but this showed that Score was working really hard to be far more than just a base card, and these cards held up. They did, in their packs, they did do another series of lenticular cards, World Series trivia cards. These are green on the back, and they're trivia cards like we'd seen before, but this was the last time they were going to be putting these into packs. So it was probably not a lot of tears were flowing from the swan song, but it was basically a swan song moving away from this. They also did a traded set, which was done as a complete set, sold in complete set form. Here they went with a burgundy to cranberry color, which again, this looks really good. It looks really good with the teal and with the blue. It's a good complementary color with the rest of the colors. But it also is bold enough that it really does look standalone. And these cards also did come with some trivia cards, an emphasis on some trivia cards. So the cards are different from the main cards from the main releases. They got a blue back, but they have different numbers, and they didn't come in packs. They came in the complete set form. So kind of a weird component, a weird thing to do. It's not like you go and collect multiple sets, opening them and try to complete the set. So kind of strange cards they did. And they did do an insert set that was released only with the complete set of the main set. And this was their Cooperstown cards. These were 7 cards, all with a B number on them. And they have this white kind of border around the outside, good art on the inside, but kind of a weird transition between them. But this, like I said, this was only released with the complete set, the main complete set. In packs, though, they did do an insert set, which was pretty unique for Score, at least. And these insert cards they're a series of 7 cards of Mickey Mantle. As simple as that. The card design is like a white border version of the franchise cards from the main set. And not a lot to talk about, except there are 2 versions of the cards, or there are 2 parallels. The first parallel was, like I said, these came in packs, but there were promo cards that were released. I think they were all dealer direct, and these were glossy. So this is the glossy that we'd seen over the years. And these cards they're the same in every way except on the back they make a slight change to the border so that down at the bottom they can put individual serial numbering out of 5,000. So distinct in that way. But they also did autographed versions of the cards, and the autographed versions are serial numbered out of 500. So this is basically the beginning of actual inserts by Score. But they did do another insert set, and this was in blister packs. So this is the kind of thing that you would find at, say, Toys R Us or Kmart. And these cards were hot rookie cards, 10 cards. They were super bold. They were screaming, just like the draft pick cards, except the draft pick cards sucked. These are great. And these were geared entirely for who would be collecting at, say, a Toys R Us. When you went into a card shop, that was for real collectors. When you went to a Toys R Us, you were a kid. And so they designed these cards for kids, and they succeeded, and I love them, and yeah, no complaints. They also did their Rising Stars and their Superstars, and there's not a lot to talk about, especially because I don't want to talk about these very much. They're really lousy designs. Basically, the Rising Stars are green with blue, and then the Superstars are red with blue, and that's about it. Let's just kind of move along away from this, because this was not a highlight even for the Rising Stars and Superstars designs. They also did a box set of 1991 rookies, and these cards are also glossy. So this is the other set that was done in glossy finish. I like the way that the design is. I think it's a really good card front, primarily because of the glossy. That being said, the card back, I gotta say, I think this card back makes the 1991 Fleer cards look pretty good. This is a terrible card back. It really, I do not like. Fortunately for me, when I put these cards into pages, I always double them up so I don't have to see them. Thank you. But I like the card front. But interestingly, in here, they also did another set of trivia cards. And this is a 6-card set, and instead of being question and answer, this is just some trivia about some player in some World Series. That's the way that it worked. So there was also this as well. And then only one other thing to talk about in 1991, and as you'll notice, this is kind of a long video. I've talked about a lot because there is a lot to talk about. So the last thing is FanFest. At FanFest, sets of 10 cards were distributed, and all I can say is pajamas. This light green color, little baseballs and baseball players floating around, it looks like a kid's pajamas. I grew out of that years ago. I'm not a fan, but that was the only other thing they did. So that was 1991, and it was a lot. It was so much that they did. But it was setting up for 1992, where they would be refining just about everything and making just about everything better, especially Rising Stars. So that's, I'll look at that at another time. I'll let you go now. Hope the video was entertaining, that you were able to follow along with everything, and definitely check out other videos I've done. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and thank you very much for watching.